He didn't code. He didn't build the computers. He didn't even graduate college. But he changed the world more than anyone in Silicon Valley ever has. This is not just the story of Steve Jobs. This is a warning, a blueprint, and a legacy. Born in 1955 and put up for adoption, Steve Jobs was raised in a modest home in Silicon Valley before it was Silicon Valley. His father, Paul Jobs, was a mechanic. His mother, a homemaker. There was no silver spoon, no private schools, just curiosity and a garage. He would later say, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking back." And looking back, it all began with a decision to drop out of college. That one choice, dropping out, would lead him to India, LSD, and eventually to the most valuable company on earth. After dropping out of Reed College, Steve Jobs slept on friends' floors, returned Coke bottles for money, and ate free meals at the Hare Krishna temple. But he wasn't lost. He was searching. Jobs found meaning in design, in simplicity, and in calligraphy. Yes, calligraphy. That obsession with fonts would one day shape the look of every modern computer. Then came Steve Wozniak, the builder, and Steve Jobs, the storyteller. Together, in 1976, they built Apple. Not in a boardroom, in a garage. With just $1,300, Apple was born. Their mission? Make computers personal. While IBM built machines for corporations, Jobs built tools for dreamers. By 1984, the Apple Macintosh launched with a commercial that would define an era, aired once during the Super Bowl. A single ad that changed advertising forever. But inside Apple, something was breaking. Success wasn't enough. Steve Jobs was brilliant, but difficult. And soon, he'd be forced out of the very company he created. At just 30 years old, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Imagine that, creating something from nothing, only to be exiled from your own vision. But instead of giving up, he did something very few people do. He started again. He founded a new company called Next and bought a little animation studio. You might have heard of it, Pixar. At his lowest, he planted the seeds for two future empires. In 1997, Apple was dying. Microsoft had won the war. The tech press called Apple a joke. So what did Apple do? They called him back. Steve Jobs returned, not as a rebel, but as a leader. And he rebuilt Apple from the ground up, starting with design, color, simplicity. First came the iMac, then the iPod, and then, in 2007, the iPhone. 3 devices, 1 revolution. He didn't just create products, he created movements. But while the world celebrated the genius, behind the scenes, something was killing him. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. For 8 years, he worked as if time was running out, because it was. He micromanaged every product, approved every box, obsessed over every font. He didn't just want to make things that worked. He wanted to make things beautiful. In 2011, Steve Jobs stepped down as Apple's CEO. 6 weeks later, he was gone. But his death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something bigger. Apple became the world's first trillion-dollar company. The iPhone changed communication. Pixar changed animation. And Jobs? He changed expectations. He proved that artists could build empires. That vision could be more powerful than engineering. That one person could dent the universe. As he once said, "Remembering you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose."
Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose.
Steve Jobs didn't just leave behind products. He left behind a question. What will you create before your time runs out? This wasn't just a biography. This was a blueprint. If this story inspired you, don't scroll. Hit like, share this video with a dreamer, and subscribe, because we're telling the untold stories of legends who changed everything.